And to talk more about China's fight against drugs, Mike Vigil, he's a former chief of international operations for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. He is also a contributor to the Cipher brief. It's a website devoted to security issues. She mentioned this could be a game changer in this battle. Do you see it as such, and if so, why?
Well, it could be a game changer because keep in mind that in October of 2015, China banned about 116 of these synthetic opioids. And as a result of that, the market plummeted. So we're hoping that now that they add 4 other opioid-based drugs, that the same thing will happen. But it's far from over because a lot of these manufacturers in China continue to change the molecular structure of these drugs, which means that the Chinese government has got to be very nimble in keeping abreast of the new synthetic drugs that are being developed. Keep in mind that several years ago, there were only a handful of synthetic opioids, and now there's probably about 164. So they continue, like bacteria, to evolve, in terms of its structure, and therefore, we have to continue combating this scourge that is, having an epidemic impact here in the United States.
Yeah, you were saying evolve, change, mutate, move around, makes it tough. Talk to me about cooperation between the United States and China. What have you seen out there in terms of that?
Well, China has been cooperating with the U.S. government in terms of banning a lot of these drugs. Keep in mind that most of the impact of the opioids, synthetic opioids that are being manufactured in China are being felt here in the United States. China really does not have a major problem with those type of drugs, and yet they are cooperating with the U.S. government in trying to control a lot of the synthetic opioids before they reach U.S. soil or Canadian soil or other countries. The young lady mentioned that they're cooperating with 20 countries, which is correct. So we were getting a lot of cooperation from the Chinese government, and without that cooperation, I think that the epidemic here in the United States would probably be even more aggravated.
So vitally important, the role there. Talk to me about someone like yourself who's been out there, who's seen the terrain as it morphs, as it changes. Is it a cat and mouse game where you're constantly changing and having to adapt and chase? Or do you have to try and anticipate what their next move is?
Well, you have to try to anticipate, and you have to evolve. You have to change your tactics. And the fact of the matter is that, when you deal with the drug trade, you squeeze that proverbial balloon, and it shoots out in other places. So you have to be very proactive, and you have to have international cooperation in order to have a positive impact on this type of situation. Here in the United States, unfortunately, we have the greatest consumer market in the world, and we have to do a much better job in terms of reducing consumption and demand.
Well, hopefully this is a step in the right direction. Mike, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. Really appreciate it.